Hello, my name is Lola, and I'm going to be reacting to The Boys, Things You Missed in episodes 1 through 3 by Screen Rant. Here we go.
Right, where were we?
So, The Boys Season 3 is here to humor us and traumatize us in equal measure. Seriously, I still see that urethra scene every time that I close my eyes. Although, it did basically confirm the whole fan theory about Ant-Man and Thanos and how he could have easily beaten him if he had just, Although the scene in The Boys was admittedly a different orifice, but anyways, I'm going on a very dangerous tangent here.
Yeah, never do that again.
So before I go any further, let's properly introduce the video as we take a look at some of the things that you might have missed in episodes 1 through 3 of The Boys Season 3. And yes, there will obviously be spoilers in this video, like the one I just mentioned. With all that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into it. First off the bat is the amount of superhero movie references and parodies, especially the ones aimed at Marvel. For starters, the Vought Studios logo looks strikingly like that of the Marvel Studios one, while the Dawn of the Seven poster and score is certainly very similar to the ones used for Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Another similarity comes as Homelander faces off with quote-unquote Stormfront in Dawn of the Seven, before being backed up by the rest of the Seven as they make their entrance by saying, "He's not alone." This is of course a parody of the She's Not Alone scene in Infinity War when Black Widow and Okoye come to Scarlet Witch's aid. This moment is made slightly more meta by the fact that the Stormfront in the movie is played by none other than Charlize Theron, who also made a shock appearance in the mid-credit scene of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness as the character Clea. But it's not just Marvel that's in the firing line in terms of parody, with DC, and in particular the Justice League, also being made fun of. I mean, Dawn of the Seven is very clearly a reference to Dawn of Justice. Of course, the likes of Homelander, A-Train, and Queen Maeve are parodies of Superman, Flash, and Wonder Woman respectively, so it's no surprise that the boys made fun of all the troubles the DCEU has faced over the years. When interviewing the director of the Dawn of the Seven, various reshoots and rehashings of the movie are brought up due to the controversy surrounding one of the movie's stars, Stormfront. The director also mentions that fans successfully petitioned for the Rourke Cut, which is clearly a parody of the Snyder Cut and how fans effectively forced Warner Brothers into completing and releasing Snyder's vision for that movie. Continuing on with the references in the Dawn of the Seven, the movie goes through some typical blockbuster tropes that we're all pretty familiar with. At one point, Stormfront tells Homelander to join her, so they can effectively rule the world together, which feels a lot like it was plucked out of Empire Strikes Back. While the "you and I are the same" line between the hero and villain is also a very overused trope.
You and I are the same. Perfect genetic specimens.
With it appearing in the likes of Raiders of the Lost Ark, Transformers, and X-Men First Class, just to name a few. The boys, however, aren't the first person to spoof this line, with Austin Powers famously poking fun at the cliche.
Remember when I told you we're not so different, you and I? We're not so different, you and I.
Another movie reference that appears in the Dawn of the Seven movie is when Homelander and Stormfront fight each other, and their powers connect and start pushing the other back. This is an image ripped out of the wizarding duels between Harry Potter and Voldemort in Goblet of Fire and Deathly Hallows Part 2, and, pretty much every other wizarding duel in general, all of which use very similar imagery. Soldier Boy is clearly a parody of Captain America, something which is reinforced by the fact that he is played by Jensen Ackles, who famously auditioned for the part of Steve Rogers in the MCU. The two even have a similar wartime propaganda video of their origins and how they fought together to save the Allied forces in a museum. But this video is also likely a parody of actual wartime propaganda videos, such as the film series Why We Fight, and the films made by the likes of Frank Capra and Anthony Vaylor. Also, another little Easter egg in this video is when he claims to have a list of communists. This is a parody of the McCarthy lists and McCarthyism in general, which saw Senator Joseph McCarthy providing a list of so-called communists, which effectively started a witch hunt. At the start of episode 3, we see a young Starlight singing Britney Spears' hit song, Hit Me Baby One More Time. Bad pun very much intended there, by the way. All while performing in a pageant. This song choice seems pretty fitting, seeing as Britney also made her way up in the pageant scene at a young age, both are Southern belles with religious upbringing, and both have a strained relationship with a parent. One of my favorite jokes in the first few episodes is the one that comes at the expense of one of the best cinematographers around. As Homelander talks down a suicidal girl, Ashley and her Vought News team wait down below to capture the heroic image of Homelander saving the day. As Ashley directs her crew, she tells them to zoom in, adding the line, "You're not Roger Deakins," referencing the cinematographer famous for his cinematic wide shots in the likes of 1917, Skyfall, and Blade Runner 2049, as well as countless others. Unfortunately for Ashley, I doubt that she would really want to use any footage from that event anyways. This next one is less of a reference, but pertains to a piece of ironic dialogue and foreshadowing. As Newman and Huey talk in a conference room, she convinces Huey that they are doing the right thing, cutting out soup collateral by 60%, and doing so by going through the law and not blood and guts. Of course, unknown to Huey, at the time anyways, she is actually the secret soup that's going around popping people's heads like some kind of body horror water balloons. This all then sets up the very violent ending where Newman encounters a soup from her childhood who threatens to expose her, which she ends up killing in her typically gory fashion. Now, this one is kind of obvious, but it's worth mentioning. The reality TV show that focuses on the next entrant into the Seven is clearly a parody of talent shows such as American Idol and The X Factor, with just a little bit of The Bachelor thrown in there for some extra spice.
You deserve a second chance.
Thank you, Starlight. Looks like we've all grown.
But the particular parody I want to mention is that of Starlight's ex-flame, Supersonic. It turns out Supersonic was in a boy band called Super Sweet, with them having a creepy #1 hit song called License to Drive. Now, the group is clearly meant to be a parody of boy bands from the early 2000s and slightly later, in particular NSYNC and Backstreet Boys.
Tell me why!
Which is kind of fitting, because they're the Backstreet Boys and the show is called The Boys. Actually, you know what? Never mind. Let's move on. As you know, The Deep, for lack of a better term, got in deep with a cult-like organization and then got out of it by publishing a best-selling book, Deeper, and becoming the thinking man superhero. But what makes the Deep's arc more interesting is the meta joke he makes when talking to Homelander, as he asks whether or not he saw the piece Malcolm Gladwell wrote up on him in the New Yorker, which was situated next to Leah Remini. Famously, Leah Remini exited the Church of Scientology on tumultuous terms, and has since spoken out about her time inside the organization. Speaking of Deeper though, the film Not Without My Dolphin on VTV is likely a parody of Hallmark movies. But I don't know, I'd totally watch it. Also, rest in peace, Timothy the Octopus. You were taken from us just far too soon. In episode 3, we get a flashback to Nicaragua and what really happened to Soldier Boy. But we also see something else, Black Noir's origin story. Here's the thing though, Black Noir's origin story as it is presented here is very different to the one from the comics, which I actually don't really want to get into because of potential spoilers. But it seems like they might be going in a drastically different direction with the character. Also, fun fact, his name is super redundant because Noir just means black, so his name is Black Black. I know that I said it's a cliche, but let's face it, other than weird fetishes, Butcher and Homelander aren't really that different, as they're not afraid to commit violence to get what they want. But there is an ironic similarity between the two showcased within the first 2 episodes. They both see themselves as Jesus. Kind of. At the end of episode 2, Homelander goes on a rant to the suicidal girl after learning of Stormfront's death that he sees himself as an omnipotent godlike figure, and he connects with Jesus on an emotional level. On the other side of the coin, in the moment in episode 1 where Butcher catches Huey by surprise, Huey exclaims, "Jesus Christ," to which Butcher jokes,
Not quite.
"Yeah, I know you can argue that this entry is a bit of a stretch, but we're in a rush to make it, so it's what we're going with." Now, if you thought that last one was a bit contentious, you're bound to think this next one is. But did anyone else think that the Vought theme park, Vaughtland, was something straight out of Duloc and Shrek?
Yeah.
As the theme park felt like a weird blend of Disneyland and the Waystar Royco theme park in succession. Definitely giving me some Duloc vibes, but that might just be me. To justify this weak entry, I'm also going to include the pop culture food stands with pun names that can be seen in the background, with my personal favorite being Woke Walk. It's just fun to say. Moving on to episode 3, when asked to stand up and say something about Blue Hawk, A-Train says he is Michael Jordan, not Malcolm X. This is a joke poking fun at the fact that Michael Jordan famously stayed out of politics during his playing days. Now this one isn't specific to Season 3, but instead of being shot and filmed in New York, where the show is set, it's actually filmed in Toronto, with a number of famous buildings and areas being visible throughout. The building that serves as the foundation for Vought Towers is actually Roy Thomson Hall, a famous theater and TIFF location in the city. And although I can't say for certain, the interior of the hall where Homelander's televised birthday celebration is taking place looks very similar to that of Roy Thomson Hall. Fun fact for any fans of The Six out there. Another contentious reference is one possibly made to one of the biggest shows of all time, Breaking Bad. Throughout the first 2 episodes, but in particular as he watches the Dawn of the Seven, a ringing can be heard in Homelander's ears as he zones out and remains in his deranged state of mind. The ear ringing effect reminds me greatly of the scene in episode 1 of Breaking Bad, where Walt learns he has cancer for the first time and we can only hear his ears ringing until he eventually points out a mustard stain on the doctor's shirt. I mean, a Breaking Bad reference would actually be quite appropriate, seeing as Giancarlo Esposito does a fantastic job in both series. Screensavers and background wallpapers in the show offer us nice little Easter eggs, as well as insights as to who the characters hold most near and dear to them. If we look at Huey's screen in episode 2, we can see a picture of him in Starlight. While on Butcher's, although the view is very obscured, we can see a picture of Butcher's old bulldog, Terror. Another shout out to Terror comes in the cookie jar sitting on Butcher's desk, which also looks a lot like the one that M had in Skyfall. Probably not an intentional reference there, but I figured I'd mention it. Another thing we noticed on Butcher's desktop is the video from Ryan that says, "Running Late," which he watches to help him sleep. Is this a dark reference to the opening incident where A-Train ran through Robin, thus setting the show in motion? Probably not, but you never know. I don't know if this was actual foreshadowing or has any relevance at all, but Huey's hand injury with the mustard jar looked like it was foreshadowed in the episode just a little bit beforehand, with a close-up shot of the jar, albeit a different one, indicating that Huey struggled to open them. Maybe this will have significance later on, like you'll have to try to open a jar to save Starlight or Butcher or somebody. Who really knows? We are just now starting to get a glimpse of Mother Milk's true backstory and how it links to Soldier Boy. And the man who plays him, Laz Alonso, has confirmed that we will be seeing a lot more of his backstory this season. The actor also revealed that he has a lot of say over the character's dialogue to make it more authentic, and is allowed to add his own stamp to the character. The only time that anything that he does is vetoed by the show's creators is when it directly contradicts what they have planned. And just a little quick one here. Early on in the episode at the very end, we hear Billy Joel's Uptown Girl being played. This is all pretty fitting, of course, as Huey has a great love for Billy Joel, although we may never hear Uptown Girl in the same way again.
The one I do like to point out is in episode 2 when Huey goes into Red River, where he sees all those kids. It reminds me of that scene where in the Matrix where Neo goes to see the Oracle and he sees all those kids. Like one of them's like making a brick float, the other one's like bending forks and spoons and all that. And the little kid tells him there is no spoon. That's what it reminds me of. Like man, like as soon as he walked in that room, that was the first thought that came to my head. Like man, that reminds me of Matrix. Well, that will do for my reaction to Screen Rant The Boys. Things you missed in episodes 1 through 3. See ya in the next one. Bye.